Today we will be hearing from Pablo from ScaleMote. He's the co-founder and CEO, and he'll be talking to you about his own journey as a non-tech founder of a tech company, and give you some insight into what that looks like and share some learnings from his own experience. So, uh, we will firstly acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands in which we all work and live today, pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I acknowledge the Wonnarua and Awab people of the Hunter region, where I reside and work. For those that don't know us, I think there's less and less every month now, but we're Boomerang Labs and we're Australia's first circular economy accelerator. My name's Katie, I'm Programs and Partnerships Manager, and on the line, how old do I sound? Online today, we also have Alison, our comms manager, who will also be leading these webinars in the future. Will I give a wave? So we're supporting this circular transition based on the entrepreneur and small businesses that are really trying to change behaviour and shift from business as usual, from the bottom up in most cases. Circular economy startups come in different forms, some more hands-on and community-oriented, and others more focus on the tech side of things. And it's something that we don't talk about a heap in terms of that, taking that leap into the tech world, which can be quite daunting. And that's why we've spoken with ScaleMote today, who will be having them and keeping them involved with our programs going forward. So what we do at Boomerang Labs is a hell of a lot, varied based on who we're talking to. So these webinars are parts of the events that we hold, both in person and online, but we also provide a range of programs for different stages of the startup journey. So we're about to launch our accelerator program. We have our launch night next Thursday, where we can finally tell you our cohort. It's been killing me keeping that secret, but we're really excited to get into that 6-month program very soon. So without taking up any more time, because I'm not the interesting one today, I'm happy to hand over to Pablo, who will chat through this all, and then we'll go into some Q&A.
Thanks, Kaylin. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So yeah, great to see you guys. I think that Kaylin already shared some of the startups you are working on. So I think that you are all doing great work, right? Anything that will help the environment is really cool. So I'm happy to, my idea today will be, now I will share a presentation, but basically will be to share my journey, as Caitlin say, on how I went from a non-technical founder to a founder of a tech startup. It hasn't been easy, so hopefully the intention of today is share what I learned, and hopefully it can add some value. And again, even though I will share a presentation, like, look, feel free to stop me anytime, and we can keep it more like a chat. I try to make it like quite tangible on, resources you can check, things you can use and stuff. So yeah, that's the idea. And again, stop me anytime. And anyway, at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. So awesome. So let's kick it off. So again, the chat today is about how I navigate tech as a non-technical founder. So a quick bio about me. My background is business, and I've been in business and entrepreneurship for the last 15 years. I started my career in more enterprise, big companies, and then I moved to scale-ups and then startups, and now the last few years, my own startup. So currently I'm the CEO and founder of ScaleMote. I will tell you a little bit more what ScaleMote is. Prior to that, I was a former general manager of Byju's Australia. It's a leading global tech player. So I set up the local entity. So there I learned what it takes to launch a startup when you have a lot of budget. That wasn't my startup, but they had like a lot of money. So it was interesting to see, how you set up a country and when you have like a few millions to spend on marketing. And prior to that, and it's probably where I will focus the presentation today, is my story of how I launched Date in a Box and how I moved that business into a SaaS business. So that's where I will focus the presentation. I will tell you now what is actually Date in a Box. Very quickly about ScaleMote. ScaleMote was born as trying to solve the problem that I faced myself as a non-technical founder, struggling with tech. So the story of today will be more on Date in a Box, but ScaleMote was born out of helping like myself 3 years ago. So basically what we do in ScaleMote, we are the tech partner of non-technical founders. So we partner with, talented non-technical founders that they know business, they know they have industry expertise, and we partner with them on the tech side. We build the tech, they build the business. That's kind of our model. The underpin model of ScaleMote is we have our own ScaleMote Academy, where we train and accelerate developers in Latin America. Probably you can tell because of my accent, I am originally from Argentina, even though I've been living in Australia for almost 10 years. My accent is still strong, I know. So we train people in Argentina, following engineering best practices, and a lot of them, we do that for free. Without going too much detail, the economy in Argentina is not great. So that for us is a way for enabling people from our country to work in tech. And again, some of those people then we'll put them to work in our own projects after they finish our program. We accelerate them, so on and so forth. But again, going to today's agenda is, again, I will focus on my journey very quickly, and then I will literally go, again, my intention is to provide like actionable things you can start using if you have the same challenges that I faced before, on how I launched my own SaaS in 3 months. And I will show you, like, again, what are the different models to build your tech, how to select your tech partner. For me, that was very daunting. Like, once you select who, if you go outsource in-house, okay, well, how do you even validate that they will deliver? There are a few things you can do on that. So it's not like just a gamble. That's the idea of today. Try to give you tools that you can leverage. How to scope out your MVP. I think that is very important at the beginning, from a non-technical side and also from a technical side. There are a few tools you can leverage with your tech partner to scope out a very clear MVP. And lastly, is when you start doing is like, well, the other question that happened to me was, well, how do I track progress and keep my partner accountable, my tech partner, when I don't know what they are doing on the tech, right? So there are also a few tools and things you can leverage to do that. And then finally, I will just finalize with like what are proven engineering best practices, and I will tell them from as a non-technical founder, like what are they. One thing that I have to mention is the co-founder and CTO of ScaleMote is Fabricio. He was a former director of engineering at The Iconic, like the fashion retailer probably you all know in Australia. So what has been happening with me is like working alongside with him on ScaleMote for over a year. I also learned a lot about tech. So what I will show you today about engineering best practice is what I learned from Fabricio, but I will give you my take on non-technical founder, right? Don't expect, I'm not a CTO, but I will tell you from a non-technical founder what I learned about what are the principles that you should look at on tech. And then we can do a Q&A, and again, but hopefully, again, stop me anytime. I prefer to keep it like a chat. So that's the agenda. So let's go to my journey as a non-tech founder. So I started Date in a Box just before the pandemic. Basically, Date in a Box is an e-commerce subscription business that we send couples every month a new date with everything you need for a date included. So literally, you open the box and you have a date night ready. The mission was clear. It was bring close relationship closer. And then again, I launched it as a solo founder. Again, I am a non-technical, bootstrapping. It was a side hustle while I was working full time. I did all the stuff with freelancers, like web developers, and then, content, marketing. But on the tech side was web developers on Upwork from India. And then I reached the peak of Dating a Box was 350 monthly subscribers. In the first year, we hit 100K plus revenue. It was profitable. And we got some signs of market fit, people giving us review organically. We were having like a really good lifetime value over CAC. So there was a lot of signs that he was telling me like, hey, I'm after something. And I started to get excited. But then happened the aha moment for me when tech became the blocker for scaling Dating a Box, right? So at some point, I was managing the whole operation of the business, 350 plus subscribers. It was relatively complex. And I just got a product bottleneck, right? Like the operations were manually, like the whole platforms were fragmented. I didn't have a database. So in short, it was a mess. So I started to feel like, the tech debt at that point. At the beginning, it was all about launching fast, and it was good. But then at some point, I was like, well, now it's very, very like, it was a challenge. Like not only from the how to scale the business, but also my vision was even bigger than a box. I wanted to turn that into something digital because it was more scalable, and I didn't know how. That's where I start like facing like, how do I, like build a tech business if I'm not a technical founder and I don't have a CTO. So that's the story very quickly about the journey. So some pictures there that I like to see, I guess. So that the first box on the left was the first prototype, was very scrappy, but that's how I proved the concept. I did with my partner. Literally, we bought games from Kmart. We designed the sections, and that's how it started. Then I launched the first box, the one at the bottom. Like again, they didn't have much design at all. Like, but that's the box that people pay $50. And then eventually, yes, I moved to the second picture on the top. After a few months, I put design. I started building my own games. Then Dating Box became like a game company because we are building our own games. Like, so you can see like Dating Box branded games. So it was a journey. And then the same for operations, right? So operation, I was first, the first 100 boxes I was going, like I got a box, I was going to Kmart, whatever, to buy the thing. So it was all doing like very like, I get the order, I go and buy. And then I start setting up the operations in my place. You can see there it was a mess. I was doing pick and pack in the boxes until finally year 2, I moved to a pick and packer. We got suppliers, the ones were providing. So we kind of grew slowly, but it was a good journey, clearly. So I will now go into the tech, but I will wrap up very quickly on the business kind of lesson that I learned. Again, for me, what worked in Dating a Box was launching fast. Literally, the prototype, I built it on the weekend with my partner. We just say, well, this is what we think. Let's buy a bunch of games. Let's do a brainstorming how we create sections, what we do. So in that weekend, we did the prototype. We didn't nail it on the first prototype, but it was an iteration. So then we built the first 5 boxes. We gave it away to a couple's friends. They gave us feedback. We say, well, we are after something. And after that, I launched the first box. I didn't know the second box. So I put marketing. I started getting orders. People started buying the box. It was that one. And then at some point I was like, well, now I need to build the second box. Well, what do I do for the second box? So I figured it out on the second month. So for me, what helped me a lot in Dating a Box was get obsessed with customers. Literally every time that a customer was buying a box, I used to call them. At some point, I couldn't call all of the new customers at the beginning. Yes, I called them and say, hey, look, do you have 5 minutes? Thanks for buying the box. Look, I would love to see, what do you think of the box? Why did you buy it? And I realized that people are willing to talk with you, because if you are genuine, so I was getting a lot of insights. And that helped me to define the early adopters. For me, it was very clear that there was a clear trend. Early adopters was new parents, right? Like they were buying this. Why? Because, with kids and stuff, it was very difficult for them to have a day night. Probably they didn't have a day night for 6 months. So I started to see those trends. And then I said, well, that's my early adopters. So then the whole marketing and the pro was more focused to them. And then for me, the other learning that I took was, again, the first box, the branding, you see it. I'm not proud of the branding of the first box. It's not great. But beyond that, for me, it's like if you solve a real problem, people will try it, even if the design is ugly. So I focus more on the design, on the product and the design, right? People started giving me like great reviews saying, hey, this was like a first date again after 6 years of being married. Like reviews that were really good. I was not even asking review. People was reaching out to me on Instagram. So that was like, wow, that's cool. Like sometimes you think like, well, it's all about the design at the beginning, and probably it's not, in my opinion. Like if people see you genuine, like you're like a small business, like, so I think that you can get a lot done. And I'm not saying that marketing is not important. Look, at some point I started focusing on that. But for me, if you're obsessed with customers, you nail the early adopters. That's how you get traction. And again, I think for me, it was all about focusing on the product, right? And I'm not my background is business, so I know nothing about couples, at least from a psychology standpoint. So I start reading, finding games out there. I start building my own games. Like, well, like I kind of bootstrap that until I could hire someone to help me with the games. I did it for 6 months. And then the last thing there that I guess for me helped me a lot was do things manually. I see a lot of founders starting from day one. It's like, well, how do I prepare this business to handle everything automated? The operational stuff, and maybe you have 20 customers. Like probably you don't need that at the beginning, right? I handled the whole, here you can see the Excel, I handled the whole logistics. We were delivering at the peak 350 boxes per month, so roughly close to 100 boxes per week all across Australia with an Excel. That was it, right? So I think that, like it's important to think about scaling, but at the beginning, I would rather put the focus on the product, designing something that people love it. And then what you can do manually, and then you figure out later how you like set up the operation for scale when there is something proven that, now we will scale. So then, well, that's this is the interesting part, the tech. So the business was great learnings. That was, I guess, what I studied and what I've been doing for a while. But the tech was challenging. As Caitlin said in her presentation was, yeah, for me, I get that feeling, right? It was daunting. So a few things that I learned there is, number one is build the right foundation from the beginning. And to build the right foundation from the beginning, you need more than developers. I hire website developers and they are okay, but they are order takers. They will execute what you tell them to do. And if you're a non-technical founder, you need more than just someone to execute. You need someone that help you to think and design the technical solution. I didn't know back then, but that role is not a developer. That role is called a software architect. Right? A software architect is someone that will help you to design an end-to-end solution. That's what I needed when I start facing the tech challenges. I went to a developer and they couldn't help me with that vision. They were just telling me, oh, you can use that plugin, but starting to become like a monster, so I needed a software architect. I didn't know back then, but now I know that that's the figure I will reach out if I were again in that position, not a developer. Then the developer will execute the vision decided by the software architect. So that for me was very important. I guess I learned it probably a few years after. There is a hidden cost. For me was, look, to be honest, I launched Date in a Box with very small investment. That was great. But now looking backwards, there was a hidden cost, right? For me, again, freelancers were affordable, but the consequences could be costly. Like for me, at some point, that became the bottleneck of the business, right? So yes, I launched fast, but I couldn't scale more than 350 subscribers. So, that's the trade-off. You have to think about it. And the one consequence that for me kind of was a big turning point for me was a hard lesson about testing. And when you are a non-technical founder, this situation was, I didn't enjoy it at all. So long story short, at some point, I wanted to switch the payment method from 1 month to 3 months. So people pay us from the 3 months rather than monthly, because it was better for the cash flow, blah, blah. And I literally say to the developer was, hey, can you do that? Yeah, all good. We'll do this plugin and done. Okay, cool. That sounds easy. Look, I went to sleep. I woke up the next day. I had probably 10 emails. People telling me are you a scam? Now you are charging me 3 times. I'm like, what is happening? Rather than to charge 3 months at one shot, it's starting to shut the 3 months, started to the 3 months 3 times in a row. So it's it was charging people 3 times more, basically, in short. And I'm like, to the software developer, hey, what happened? I'm like, I cannot even stop that now. What have you done? And so at that point, I felt it's scary, because you don't know I didn't know even how to stop it. She was not even very reactive. I'm like, hey, I can get in serious trouble here. I mean, this is about me taking money from people's bank accounts. I'm like, I can even get in legal trouble. Can you stop now? So eventually we stopped it, but that was where I said, well, how I even think about now moving this into a SaaS platform if I even cannot make a simple payment change? And that's where I said, well, I will stop with the tech. Then the other thing, now I will tell you how I went back to the tech, right? But at some point I said, well, I will not touch it. The least that I can touch, the better, because this can explode, and I can get in serious trouble. So then I'm like, okay, well, Then the other lesson that I learned is finding a CTO is not easy. And I think that the one thing that I will encourage you guys to do is if you find a great CTO, great. I mean, go for it. But for me, like a real CTO with proven experience as a software architect, like working in big tech, is very unlikely to join you before you raise money and you have market fit. These guys are probably earning a lot of money. We all know that tech people are they have huge salaries, especially if you are at a CTO level. So my point is, do not rush the CTO. And I did that. I took a developer as a CTO, was a disaster. Like that person was a developer, wasn't a CTO. So that didn't work. After 2 months, I stopped. So for me, it's like, if you find a real CTO, great. If not, do not rush it. Do not appoint a developer as a CTO. Is completely different skill. A developer can be a gun programming, but a CTO is someone that is a software architect, can design solutions, see how everything works, recommend. Like, it's two completely different skills. So that's my take. I learned it the hard way. So now I will be way more mindful when I try to get a CTO. Now I'm lucky with Fabricio, but that's another story. Now I know what it is to have a great CTO. You literally don't need to care about tech. That's a great feeling. But anyway, so tech can be daunting. Again, as we talked before, like I think that for me at some point I tried to learn myself, not to code, but I'm starting to search solutions, how I integrate things, and that was a waste of time, right? So for me, it's like, don't attempt to learn everything. I think that for me now, looking backwards, what is helping me and what I will focus today is learn the key principles of tech. You don't need to know the programming itself, but you need to know some key principles, and that will help you to navigate the tech world. So today I will focus on the key principles that I think is something that you can learn. So basically, data in a box. Finally, after I launched ScaleMote, because now we have in ScaleMote a team of 80 plus developers, so now all of a sudden I have a lot of, like resources, and I have Fabricio as a CTO. So I say, well, look, can I do, like, I wanted always to turn this into a SaaS platform. So in 3 months, we put a team to work, and Data in a Box became now a digital platform where you can go, log in, you can choose a box you want to play, you can sign up through your mobile phone, and then all the games are online. And all that, the first game, we did all that thing, took us 3 months, and now we are even pivoting to a B2B model where we'll offer connection activities for businesses. And I'm working on a second MVP on that. So that's where I say, well, that what I thought for 3 years, I get it done. The first version, don't get me wrong, is still not fully live, but the first version of the MVP, like a game, like that you can play anywhere, like in 3 months, I'm saying, wow, that's, for me, that was insane. So I'm like, well, definitely there is something that I didn't know back then, that there are some things that are possible and seems like for us unrealistic. But look, if you know the principles, you can get a lot done. So then from that is, again, so now from now onwards is like all my learnings as building that SaaS platform that I show you. And again, a little bit of my experience of ScaleMote, like helping non-technical founder, but it's mostly about my own experience as a non-technical founder building the SaaS that I will share today. So the first question that I guess came to my mind back then, well, which is the right model to build your tech? So I will try to help you answer that question. So there are 3 ways to building your tech as a non-technical founder, especially at the beginning. Number 1 is low code, no code tools. You probably know Babel. There are a few out there. Pros, low cost. Like it's definitely relatively cheap. The cons of that is not scalable and it's time consuming. If you try to do it yourself, still no code tool is still not super easy if you don't know the stuff. If you hire a developer, probably a developer of a no-code tool will charge you the same as a developer of a JavaScript, for example. So there, I'm not sure if it's that cheaper. But the main thing for me, what I will look at is not scalable. Usually you will get caught up in a no-code tool. So then if you want to scale further on, like it will be pretty much you have to throw it away. You can get started really quick, don't get me wrong. but you should wait also what are the cons, right? So that, and again, it will depend on what you want to build and stuff. Maybe there are some things that probably a no-code tool will keep you going for a long time. But if you are after a SaaS, like it's probably not scalable sooner than later. Then you have paying someone to build it, like, you know, like offshoring or local agencies, but basically outsource your tech. There are too many options there. So then you will start saying, well, do I go local? If I go offshore, in which country or that? So I will try to focus on that. But I believe that this is a model, at least at the early on, to de-risk and to get started quick, de-risk the project. I will encourage MVP to outsource. And I will tell you now a little bit more why. And then you have the partner with the venture studio, right? Like usually they are good, but like they will ask you equity, and it's usually hard to get in because they only take 5 or 10 people per year. So, and then of course you have like on the paying someone, it's also like your own team will discuss that, why to hire and when to hire your in-house team. So those are the 3 models. Then, well, after you decide the model, well, it's like, what are the cost models? Because there are different ways people will charge you. And pretty much there are 3 in the industry, right? Number 1 is a fixed project cost. This is usually the most well-known. In my opinion, is the least preferred option. And I will tell you why. This is basically, you sit down with someone and say, hey, I want all this. And they will come back to you and they say, well, it will cost you X in X amount of time. That sounds pretty straightforward. The underlying thing on that is like software is not that straightforward. And it's very hard for you as a founder to know in day one what you want to build, like all the things. And for them, it will be very hard to quote everything from day one because things change, especially early stage. So basically what happened with this model is you are not aligned with the agency. For the agency, the benefit for them is they will try to deliver the project as soon as possible, usually cutting down on quality because for them, they want to get the money SIP, get done with the project and move on, right? So every time that you ask a change, they will charge you a change request and blah, blah, blah. So usually that's not a model that works, at least in our experience for early stage startups. The other one is pay per hour, right? You get developers, you agree a hourly rate, and they will have a time tracking tool, and they will say, hey, this month we worked 100 hours. We did X, Y, and Z. Now this is the bill. What happened with that is like, yeah, okay, you already negotiate the hourly rate, but what can happen is like you might get at the end of the month a bill shock. They say, well, this feature, you know what, took us, we told you it will take five hours, but it took 20 because it has a bug, whatever. In software, there are things that are unpredictable. So then what can happen in that option is like you can get a bill shock, you know, like you don't know how much you will spend every month. So that's a little bit the downside of that. There is another one that is the one that we recommend, is a fixed monthly fee. So basically on this one is there is no fighting over changes, no bill shock, and no incentive to come down on quality. Basically how this model works is you will agree a retainer fee every month with the agency in exchange for resources. For example, you might say, well, I will give you an engineering team, X amount of hours every month for this amount of money. That is already very clear the scope. And then for this model to work, it's very important to work on a sprint basis. That's how you will get the agency accountable. You have to see progress every sprint. So you should align at the beginning of the sprint very clear sprint goals. I will show you now a few examples. And at the end of the sprint, you should ask them to do the demo, what has been delivered and what hasn't been delivered. So then you keep the agency accountable on outcome rather than hour, right? And for them, the incentive is to deliver the sprint goals, because if they don't deliver the sprint goal, they will go to you and say, well, we haven't done anything. And for you, it will be very straightforward to say, well, look, do I have to pay you? You haven't done nothing, you know? So that's the model that we think in early stage works best. Other models could work. Fixed project cost probably could work more for enterprise, later stage startup. When you are very clear on the scope, that could work. But if early stage it's something, especially building your MVP, uncertainty is a big thing. So I wouldn't recommend that one. And then it's always the decision about the 2 models is about waterfall or agile. Waterfall is like fixed project, right? Waterfall means day one, you tell me all what you want to build. I, as an agency or developer, I will come back and tell you the whole plan, how I will build it, when, and I will show you at the end of the project what I have built. Not great for startups because, again, you probably don't know all the requirements from day one. You want to be able to respond to changes. Pivoting is a key thing of a startup. So if I tell you now I want all this and in 6 months you come back with the platform, now I have to test with users, I'm like, maybe I could realize there is a high chance that in 6 months, I realized that no one wanted that platform and I lost 6 months of development. So that's the key thing of waterfall, getting all the value delivered at the end, whatever that might be the deadline, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. It's very risky because it's too late to do changes and you already burned whatever amount you agree with them. So there is another way that is agile. And actually there are some, I'm not saying that it's better. There are some good sources that they say the success rate. Waterfall is 49%, agile is 64%. And so why agile is, first of all, is we need to, I think that for me, it took me some time to understand what agile means. A lot of people out there are saying, well, agile is, yeah, we do daily check-ins and, that's agile, right? Because we do a daily stand-up. That's not agile, right? So agile, if you have to go to the agile manifesto, at least in software, that's where the agile concept came from. And you have there the website, you can check it out. So basically, agile is about delivering value in small increments. So giving you the opportunity to see progress and make changes often. What it means agile is like every sprint cycle, you have to see a working feature. They have to show you in a testing environment, but you have to see the features. So then you can try it, you can see. So that's agile. Agile is not, let's check in 2 weeks, let's do a daily stand-up, but they never show you something. That's the wrong understanding of agile, right? So I would encourage you, go to the agilemanifesto.org. There you have the principles, but there are the two that are the main one for me. Is like, one is the key principle is working software over comprehensive documentation. Rather than to put a lot of time negotiating contracts, creating plans, and then we'll change, here is all about let's work on the software. So let's do stuff. Let's review it in 2 weeks. Let's see the features. So doesn't mean like you don't know what to have a plan, but it means that the plan is fluid, right? Rather than to try to lock in every single feature and spend 1 month creating the plan that in probably 1 week will change, is more, let's have a high level technical roadmap and then let's start building the software and try with users. You give me feedback and then we iterate from there. So that's working software over comprehensive documentation. And the other principle, there are 4 or 5. I just put the main 2, but again, you can go to the website. The other one is responding to change over following a plan. In early stage startups, if I lock you in a contract, and every time that you want to do a pivot, we need to negotiate a change request, it will only not cost you money, but time. It will be a mess. So it's more having a fluid arrangement where you can pivot, responding to change without the constraint of paying more, whatever. So those are the 2 principles that for me resonate the most, especially for early stage. So for me to wrap that up is, look, I think that as a non-technical founder, you don't know what you don't know. Developers are expensive, and ensuring you have the right one on board is very difficult, at least on the early days, because you need to go into recruiting, like managing now your team, like without a CTO is hard. So my recommendation, at least at the beginning, is outsource your project to a software agency with a fixed monthly fee and who works on agile methodology. Again, check that they work on true agile methodology. Means like they will deliver value every sprint. They will show you working software. This is usually better than a freelancer or a sole developer because you don't have siloed knowledge. So usually a software agency will have more resources, software architects, PMs, developers, so you have a whole team rather than just one developer. And then it will be up to you on the cost, right? So if you can afford a local agency, great. Usually the rates will be higher. If you are tight on budget, probably offshoring could be a good option. And then you will decide, well, which countries will be offshoring, things that will be a very personal decision, but well, it will be all about, like cultural alignment and like blah, blah, blah. But again, for me, the key model is, I think that outsourcing the MVP at the beginning is the best way to de-risk the project. Once you prove your idea and you find market fit, then you can decide either to keep outsourcing or moving the team in-house, hiring a CTO, and all that stuff. Like, look, the startup journey is like by phases. So I'm not saying that this model has to stick for the whole startup journey, but I think at the beginning it's all about de-risking. So de-risking in terms of time and money, probably outsourcing is what will give you that the best. So then, okay, let's say you decide the model you want to go after, right? So let's say you decide an outsourcing agency, right? Like offshoring outsourcing agency. Well, then it's like the second question that probably more likely will come to your mind is how you check and select your tech partner, right? Because will be like thousands of software agencies, all of them telling you like, hey, we are great. But if you are where I was 3 years ago, I didn't know even how to check that they are good. Yeah, you are telling me you are good, but how do I validate that? So then we have our own checklist for selecting a tech partner. So I think that this is helpful. I'm happy to share after. There are a few things that are probably you will do it for any service, like reviews and referrals. That's a no-brainer. But now I will go more into details of for a tech partner, what you should look at. Again, reviews and referrals, no-brainer. You should check if they will build in a popular technology, right? So for example, JavaScript is the most popular language. So if you can build it in JavaScript, the better, because then it will be easier to find developers. It will be easier, like if you go to a very niche language, then you might get caught up in a very niche language. So like how popular is the technology is something that you should look at. You should also ask if they run automated tests, because if not, there will be a high chance that things will, it will be very buggy, the code. So I will show you a little bit more what it means an automated test, but that's a question that you should ask. You should ask also if they follow agile methodology and how often they will release working software. You should also check that they are not simply order takers. A good tech partner will let you, it will also help you to guide your thinking. If they tell you like, look, I will give you 2 developers and 1 PM and that's all, and there is no support to designing the solution, as a non-technical founder will be very, very hard. So you want someone that will execute, will develop, but you need someone that help you to design the solution. Again, the key figure there is a software architect, so you should ask for it if they provide it. They ask to set up things on your own name. So the code, you should have ownership since day one. So GitHub, I will tell you a little bit more what is GitHub if you don't know, but GitHub is where your code sits. So they should ask you to create your own GitHub, not creating on their GitHub. Otherwise, the code is actually not yours. Of course, they provide support after go live, and they provide documentation. I will show you a few examples on solution diagram and stuff. So that's the checklist. How to score my MVP? I guess there are a lot of tools out there. So what I did is I took the best one in my opinion, and I put like all together. So for me, I came up with my own Figma that is a combination of different tools. I'm happy to show you now. But yeah, I came up with 3 steps. First is validate your idea. Get clear on the idea. I think that Lean Canva is a really good way to do it. See what's out there, lightning demo, visualize the solution, do an sketching, and do a prototype, non-tech. Do experiments. Once you validate, then you go to tech. And then in tech, it's all about designing the tech solution. C4 diagram is what you should ask. I will show you now what it looks like. And then it's all about once you design a solution, then is when you go to build it. And you build it in an agile way and follow engineering practice. So I wouldn't rush to building without designing the solution. I think that will be really a big mistake, potentially costly. So like, let me show you this. 1 second. Like this is a Figma. Sorry, like it's just an example, but this is for the SaaS MVP that I'm creating for together for clients. Sorry, 1 second. Right, so here, right? So here I put like literally in 1 hour with the team. We sit down with the Lean Canva. What is the problem? What is the solution? The key metrics. What are the existing alternatives in the market? Size of the price. So that was very quickly. Then we went out there and we see like what we call lightning demo. It's a technique. So you go there and you see who is doing something similar, and you analyze them. So for example, here we found like a quiz.com. They do quiz quiz for B2B, like there is another, well, Kahoot is a very well known, like blah, blah, blah. So we explored a few options, but very agile and lean. Then we did like a sketching, like we came up with our own like a prototype. Like we say, hey, well, this is a proof of concept. We'll show people these 5 questions, put a roulette, and then get people to try it. So we are running now in this period, we are running experiments. So we are getting data on that. And this is the sketch, right? The sketch, the prototype was very simple. Was you will have all the people like a roulette, you will have the questions and people the roulette will do, and there is an online roulette, so you don't need anyone to code it. And now we are on the way of getting feedback. And after that, so now we get all the feedback here. Now we try with 28 people, 35% say from 1 to 4 is good, another 8, and only a few people say 1 to 2. So if this is a very rough prototype and people are saying they are finding value, that's encouraging, and we are working on that. And then we design what is called a sketch, how we see the first product. Basically, we see a Google Meet. You have all the participants, and participants can click on together in the Google Meet, and the game will show up as an add-on of Google Meet. That's what we envision. I have no idea how this will build from a tech, but that's where I think will be the best solution as a user experience, right? So you click the button of together and you will have different options. Do I want to play a roulette? Do I want to put a timeline? Do I want to do a quiz? So, and then it will show up. So that's the sketch. And then after that, once you design that, you don't need to know if it's feasible or not. That's where a software architect will come in. A software architect will come in, will listen to you, what you want to build, and will tell you, well, yeah, that could be feasible, and that's how you will build it. And this is how it's done, is using like a C4 diagram. So a C4 diagram basically is this. So you should ask, get that, sorry, 1 second. Here. A C4 diagram is a way you see the architecture of your solution. And you have different levels, right? Level 1, level 2 will go deeper and deeper. But in simple terms, it's a visual representation of the system. So for example, in Together, you will have, the software architect told me, well, you will have, this is not the B2B, this was a B2C, right? The game that I showed you at before, because that was already done. And the B2B, we are still working on the C4 diagram. But on the Together couples, we say, well, we'll have a front-end application. So the user can log in to the front-end application, the user and the guest user. You will have an admin user that will be the content creator, and you will go to the admin panel. So the admin panel will only be linked to the admin user. And then once from the front end, you will go to the back end through a core API. The core API will be built on this language, will handle all the business logic. And from the core API, what will go with you will have a login authorization. So every time that a user wants to log in, we'll go to the API. From there, we'll go to AWS Cognito that we use from a login, where we'll handle the authorization for the people to log in. And then we'll go to a database built on AWS RDS. The database will have all the user and boxes related data. So this is the first of how the system will be built, with technology, how everything will connect it. And from here, I mean, I will not go into detail, but then you go level 2, level 3. Well, now how each game will be done. Well, each game will have a game module, a lobby module. This is how, but then goes detail and detail and detail. This is a way to build software. So C4 diagram is like, and here there is a website. You can check c4model.com. It will explain you like this tool. This is the way how software is built. So if you go for a tech partner, you should ask. My tip there is, do not shy away as a non-technical founder of designing the solution. At least go out there and see, well, that's how I envision. For example, I guess, well, Google Meet, I have no idea if I can even do an integration with Google Meet, but I say, well, this is how I envision that. So that's something as a non-technical founder you can do. And then, yes, the next step is go to a software architect and say, well, I envision that, how we get it done. And the answer of that should be a C4 diagram. And that person will tell you, well, this is how it can be done. this is the technical feasibility, and this is the stack recommended. So all that information will be in the C4 diagram. If I ask someone, hey, can you do that? And they come back, it's like, you know what? Let's do design first. Let me spend 100 hours to do like a Figma. Nothing wrong with a Figma, but a Figma doesn't show you if a software can be built, right? So it's okay to design, but if you are after a software, you need to design how the solution will be built. It's not just about a nice screen or not. And then you start building. So hopefully that answer that for me it has been speeding up my journey on the B2B front now of Together. B2C took me longer. Now B2B, using that sprint, like I'm getting faster and faster with the dev team. So that's a tool I'm using. That's a real example. And then once you start building is, well, how do you track progress and keep your tech partner accountable? Because as non-tech founders, we don't know what they are doing. And again, here is go principles based. So basically what you should ask is you should create a product backlog, align with your tech partner, what are all the key milestones they will have on the project. And then once you do that, every sprint, you will sit down with them and you should define the sprint goals and the specific tickets they will work on. And the tickets as a best practice should always be as a user perspective. It shouldn't be build an API endpoint. It should be as a user, I want to be able to search products by name. The tickets should be done in a consumer language, right? So then for you and them is clear, and that's a best practice, right? So that's how tickets are done. So that is where you start feeling more in control. So yes, you don't know the programming, but when I did this is a real example of the first MVP of Together Couples. I sit down with the development team. I have no idea about the login, how we will build, but I align with them is when you will do what. They will have the login plus the registration. I know what is a login and a registration, so I can check in that it has been built by, this was 23rd of June. Then we'll have the first, then we'll have the lobby. It was one of the sections, it will be, I will have the front end of the lobby plus the QR code, so I can scan the QR code. Then I will have the warm-up game. There was 3 games. The warm-up will be ready by end of July. Then I will have an admin panel. It will take all those weeks, but I will have it by then. Then I will have the connect was the last game. And then I agree with them that end of August, I should be able to play the first game. So that was very straightforward. Did I need to get in detail into how exactly the API will? No, but that was covered in the C4 diagram, and it's up to you how much in detail you go on that. But they provide the C4 diagram, and for me it was, okay, well, they know what they are doing. And then I had milestones that for me are concrete as a non-technical founder. Well, I will be able to log in. Yes, cool. So the sprint goal was completed. So epic backlog is that. And then in each sprint, what you do is you go to a list, of concrete, like, sorry, 1 second. Like you go to design the sprint goals and you create there, well, what are the different tickets that they will work. Right here, they will work on the admin panel. They will do the menu creation. As an admin user, I want to set up the quantity of players to a game. So usually that ticket probably is not the best one. It should be more as an admin. And then they will do whatever. So each sprint you sit down with your tech team. You define the tickets from the backlog. You flesh it out more, what you will work on. And at the end of the sprint, you should request a demo where they will show you a working software on a testing environment, but they should be showing you a working software. Otherwise, you don't know what they have done. So yeah, that's pretty much. So practical tips to check in on progress is that, right? So it's working features, align the sprints, goals, ask them a demo, and that's, you will be good. And then just to wrap up, so then we can keep some time for questions, is mastering your MVP with proven engineering best practices. Very quickly, because we are running out of time, is a few things that I'm happy to share a checklist of this. Own your system, critical. If you will be a tech founder, the code has to be yours. How you do that is you should create your own AWS or whatever cloud user you are using, and you should create your own GitHub account. If they are sitting the code on their GitHub account, again, from a code perspective, you are not the owner. They are the owner because it's on their GitHub, right? So that's something that you should ask from day one. If they say, no, we'll move it after, no. you should have your own GitHub account. Do not negotiate on that. Use a password manager. There are things that everyone talking about cybersecurity. And I think that the early on you start thinking about small things, the better. Like you use a password manager like Bitwarden, probably take a note. That one is a free tool. You should set up all your passwords there for the organization, especially if you will start hiring freelancers, whatever. That will be probably be a good foundation for later on to have like any issues with the breach and stuff. That's a very easy thing you can do, and the earlier you do, the better, because you will have all the password there. Set up budget alerts, like on AWS, when you host on AWS or any other cloud, like the cost can get out of hand. So, and as a non-technical founder, you want to be aware of how much you will spend. So you can set up automated budget alerts. So if 1 week you see that it's spiking, then you can go to your tech manager and say, well, hey, that's unusual. Why this week is coming as it sounds like you will be spending 200%. And then they might say, oh, wow, you know what? We did X experiment. Now it's taking more. Why? So as a non-technical founder, you should look at the output, the spend. Probably then what happened, if you have the spend that is spiking, then you ask them, well, what are you doing? Have a CI/CD pipeline without going too much detail, and you can search for that. Basically, this is how they will test things. Usually good software is build, you test, and then you deploy. So you should ask them, what is your testing process? If they don't do testing process, then it's where probably you will end up with a buggy software. No one can guarantee that software will be bug free, because that doesn't exist. But yes, you should look at the process, how they will test. That will decrease the chances of having a buggy software. Automated test is critical for software. You should ask the agency, are you running automated tests? Automated test will run all the time in the back of your code. Every time that you do something, will go through different checklists, and that will happen every single time. If they do manual test, that's where I will start being concerned. It's like, well, manual, it's like how often you will do it, like things can go wrong. So setting up running automated test will guarantee that the quality is way better. And then going very detail, you can use quality gates such as SonarQube that will run reports for you. And as a non-technical founder will tell you like how is the software, what is the quality of the software. That has bugs. It tells you literally that how many bugs, has potentially security issues. Well, like, so having that is where us and non-technical founders are, without knowing all the details, we can see metrics. SonarQube will give you those metrics that you can understand, because it will tell you, it will even grade the software. So if it started being all red, you will ask your tech partner saying, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but SonarQube is telling me that this software has red flags everywhere. So can you go and fix it, or explain why is that? So again, you will not go into a discussion of what is going wrong, but you will keep them accountable on the quality of the software. And this is tested by open source trusted software. So foundation, critical guys, if one thing to take out is C4 diagram at the beginning is something that you should ask whoever will build your software. Even if it's your developers, your CTO, say, hey, look, show me a C4 diagram, and you should understand the C4 diagram. And the last one, leveraging tech in software, like it's all about like buy, borrow, and build in that order. So if you can buy something, for example, a design template, there is a website here that I can show you, like you can get a design template for $39, and that already have a login, registration, all that. You should go for it, at least at the beginning. And then you should try to borrow as much as you can, but borrow through things like are scalable. For example, if you want to build your own login registration, that will take a lot of dev hours. Amazon has their own login that is called Amazon AWS Cognito. It's free for up to 50,000 users. Is done by Amazon, so security is like next level. So if you build your own login, will never compete with AWS. So that's the solutions that you will go after. And a good software architect will tell you those solutions. If you ask them, I want to build my tech app, the first thing is, I will build all from scratch. That's not the way software is built, right? So you should only build your IP. What is core to your business, that's what you should build. The things that are peripheral, for example, a login, go after things that will scale, a CRM, like a calendar, like an integration with Google Calendar. Why you will build your own calendar? Doesn't make sense. So that's my thing. Happy to open to questions. And then last one, you can take note of my email. If you need any help with tech, I'm happy to provide you some further tips. And even if you want like a C4 diagram for your idea, I will happy to help you put in touch with one of our software architects. And as part of Boomerang Labs, we'll do it at no charge, at least a high level technical roadmap. And then, yeah, that's probably it from me.